Welcome to your iconic image. If you want to take control of your image and be a power player in your space, then this is the show for you. Here we will arm you with tools and information to help you grow your brand on purpose. I'm your host, Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Now let's dive into today's episode. Metaxa. The name is iconic. Founded in 1888, the Spirits brand spanned generations, as did the stories and lessons shared. Today we have the honor of speaking with Zika, daughter, marketer, and author, as she shares a bit of what it was like growing up as part of the family behind the brand. Welcome, Zika.
Hello, very nice to see you, Marlene. I'm very happy to be here with you.
So, as I read your memoir, I thought there are a lot of different ways we could take this conversation. But What I'd like to do is I'd like to actually start with the women, because I feel that in society and also in certain cultures that it's very difficult for women to find their way, find their voice, all of these things. But you come from a long line of very strong women. And sometimes that strength was a good thing and sometimes not such a good thing. But tell us a little bit about your mother and your grandmother, who you are named after.
Yes, thank you very much. Indeed. Basically, it all started with the women of the family. My great-grandmother, she was really a very dynamic personality. Now we are talking in the 80s, of course. It was unthinkable of a woman to have to speak their mind at the time, especially in Greece, which I'll come to that later on. So she was very dynamic. She was working in it was not a factory yet, in the business, whatever business it was at the time. It was at the very beginning. She raised her children. She had 9 children, single-handedly with her husband, but she was in care of everything. And she even had a say in politics and was able to issue a law. She was also a great philanthropist. She lived in a house in the suburbs in Piraeus, a port, a very well-known port in Greece. And every day she would give off free food in big plates for the people who did not have money to buy food, for the poor. And there were queues and queues of people waiting for the food. Despina, that was her name, was giving out. So that was my great-grandmother. Then my grandmother Zika, whom I'm named after, because this is the family tradition. We are named after the fathers, usually parents. She was also extremely dynamic. She had a very strong personality. People at the time we had the factory, so she was coming to the factory every day. People at the factory, the employees, were always almost scared of her, because she was always walking around, looking around, poking her nose everywhere, literally, and she had a big nose. And obviously she was not working with finances or the marketings, but she was taking care of the other how can I say this? The other aspects of the business. She was going around, making sure the gardens were okay. We had chicken at the time in the factory that the hens had laid the chickens. She was always around. She knew who was working where, in what place. She was walking up and down all day, like a surgeon, I would say. So she was very dynamic. Now my mother, Corina, she was less dynamic in the business area because she left my father, to do that, as it was his parental business. She stepped aside, but she was very dynamic in that she grew up also single-handedly, without help, 3 children, me and my 2 brothers. And she had her presence was, let's say, low-key, but she was dynamic in an invisible way, always making sure her way eventually, passed.
Sometimes, the quiet strength is usually underrated. And it seems like your mother had a lot of quiet strength.
That's true. I think a quiet strength, and I think it's very intelligent to have a quiet strength. I have tried a lot of times to imitate her, but I have never succeeded, because I'm very spontaneous and I always speak out my mind, sometimes even faster than I should.
But now, your grandmother and your mother didn't have a great relationship in the beginning.
Not at all. My grandmother was very, very difficult in her relationships. And the weird thing is that's why the book is about, patterns going on again and again through generations. She didn't have a good relationship either with her in-laws and her husband's siblings. She never approved of my father's marriage, never, because she wanted my father to marry someone from a wealthy family, which my mother was not. And she never accepted the fact that he went on and did what his heart told him to do without taking into consideration her words. So that was very unforgettable in her mind. She felt her son had betrayed her. And now remember, bear in mind, that was in the 1960s. Still in those days, and especially in Greece, it was a very big thing, who marries whom. The parents had a tremendous say in it. And it was really unthoughtable that, my father went ahead and did what married the girl he loved, although his parents did not approve. So in that way, they really did not have a very good relationship, not at all. But after many, many years passed, we were quite old, all of us. Towards the end, I would say, of her life, of my grandmother's life, the relationship did finally take a good turn. And at least towards the last years of her life were peaceful in that manner.
What was different about what you saw growing up, female versus male, in your family?
Oh my God, the difference. It's like black and white. But not only in my family, in Greece, in all families. And can I tell you, even nowadays, it still is the case. Not so prominent as it was those days, but still. So the thing is that in Greece, it's as soon as the wife becomes pregnant, everybody in the family, except herself, are praying for a boy. In order to take their family's name and the surname and the last name, and to continue the business. That was always in their mind all these years, in the 1960s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s onwards. To the point that in the villages, in the provinces, this still applies today. Let's say, for example, someone has 4 kids and he has 2 boys, 2 girls. Someone will ask him, how many children do you have? He will say, oh, I have 2 children and 2 daughters. Like the daughters are not even considered children. And even today, it's they say, for example, she did very well for a girl. She became a lawyer or a doctor. Still, they think it's something very major that a girl accomplished to finish her studies and to become a doctor, a lawyer, or politician. So that was very, very much the case in my family. And since I was the first grandchild born into the family, the first grandchild to my grandfather and to my grandmother, the fact that there was a daughter was very disappointing to them. They really expected the first grandchild to be a boy. So it was a quiet event when I was born. When my first brother, Andreas, was born 4 years later, that was a huge event. I mean, they didn't have at the time, I think, the fireworks. If they did, they would have lit them up so much. Yes. And excuse my English again, but it's not my native language. That's why I have to think sometime.
You're doing fantastic. And it's actually very engaging to listen to. So
okay.
What, your book talks a lot about family patterns and things like that. Mm-hmm. What patterns do you hope to continue and which ones do you hope to break?
Now, this is very difficult because this is really challenging for me, because the patterns I'm trying to break, being completely honest here, I have to fight to break because subconsciously I repeat them every day with my son. And I have to make a very strong thought and restart and say, Now you're being your mother, you're being your grandmother, you're being your father. You're saying exactly the same things. Sometimes I even catch myself doing the same, not remarks, figures. How do you say, expressions on my face, like my mind. I roll the eyes, I go, all these things I hated. I do them more. And when, for example, my son tells me, "Oh my God, you sound like grandma," I'm like, I do, yes, I do. And then I try to restart. And talking with friends, I have realized that all of us more or less do the same thing. And
Yeah.
this is the challenge and the difficulty to try and break this circle, because I feel this intuitively and in my heart that if we can break the circle, it will not be repeated also after us.
Right. Which patterns do you hope to continue? Because there has to be some wonderful things that you remember as well.
Yes, I hope to continue being generous in the heart and kind, and above all, a human and decent person with a low profile, not arrogant or snobbish or all the opposites of that.
What's your favorite family story?
My favorite family story. Let me see, because there were so many. Definitely it was from during the World War II, when the Germans were here and they were raiding Greece. My grandmother, Zika, trying so hard to obtain food for her children. I've written about this. And it was so difficult to find a piece of bread. If they found an egg, it was a luxury. They had to exchange things in order to get food. And she was telling me how she was running from one corner to the other, trying to find a piece of bread or some, not even vegetables, just like maybe one green leaf or something, while the Germans were raiding the city with bullets. Basically, she was running out amongst the bullets with the food hidden in her coat or in her dress to go and feed her sons. This for me has stayed with me. Whenever I go grocery shopping or whatever and I buy something for the house, I always think of this. And I'm always grateful of what we have now, of all the years that we've been through, the generations before me, the generations to come. Take for granted things like the supermarket or the groceries or having a good life.
Mm.
That's one of the stories I really remember and has stayed with me.
And, it's what's so interesting, too, is as your grandmother is, trying to navigate the streets and go past bullets and things like that, the men in your family were actually still making this liquor.
They were still making this liquor. They were trying to make it, not to present it, the liquor it was, to let's say, downsize the whole story, because the Germans at the time knew that this liquor was happening, Metaxa, and definitely wanted to obtain the recipe. So my grandfather at the time tried very, very hard, and he managed not to give the exact recipe, because they really pushed him for the recipe. They wanted to go and do the identical thing in Germany or whatever. But the men in the family managed to keep it a secret, one way or the other, cheating the Germans. And till the end of their career, this recipe was a secret recipe. Only they knew. And it went from mouth to mouth, from man to man. Mm. My grandmother didn't know the secret recipe. She was a woman.
Yeah. Did you ever know?
No, and I don't think I will. I'm a woman still.
That's funny. And I remember reading in the book too, it was actually pretty brilliant what they did with the brass spigot.
Yes.
Tell that story.
Yes, because at the time they had it was in the barrels. It was still in barrels. They didn't have time to bottle a lot of bottles, just a few bottles. And mostly it was from barrels, and they would open the little tap. Let's say there was a tap, a bronze tap, and people would either go with empty bottles of their own, for example, water bottles or something else, and fill it in, because this was the war. Or they would, the ones who had some money to buy a bottle would buy a bottle. So when the Germans, but they knew, my ancestors knew that this bronze tap was not very good for the product because it sort of ruined the taste and the quality. But at the time, they didn't have either the means or the people and the time to concentrate and make it as they should, which they did after the war. So when the Germans came demanding to obtain the recipe of the product, they said, of course, come in, we'll welcome you, we'll give you a drink, try this product before we give you the recipe. And they made sure they gave them the product from the tap, the bronze tap, which was not good also in taste. So the German, I think it was a colonel, somebody who started drinking, said, he spit it out. This is awful stuff. Why are people talking about this stuff? This is disgusting. So he thought that people were just drinking it or buying it, obtaining it because they were desperate. It was the war. And they thought, it's better than nothing. We can have some alcohol. So he totally took it out of his mind. And he said to everybody, all his other followers and German friends or whatever soldiers, that this is just a rumor. It's not at all a good product. This product is awful. We don't need to spend another moment on this product. And then, as I say in the book, little did they know that many years later, it was exporting this product from Greece to Germany. And actually, Germany was one of the first countries in exports in Metaxa. They drank lots of it. They loved it. They still do.
So funny.
Yeah.
You talk about that, this was a very male-dominated business, this family business. So did you have difficulty carving out a path for yourself within the business?
Yes, I had a lot of difficulties. And I think it has still stayed with me all these years. I have been always trying to prove that I am good enough business-wise, that I can do it like a man. And I think this has stayed with me, and it's not a good, not something I'm proud of. I'm trying to fix it, to make it better. But after all these years struggling to prove that, as a girl, as a woman, I can also do it. I can handle the liquor. I can sell the liquor. I can market the liquor. It was quite difficult. They never took me seriously, especially in the beginning.
Which is funny to me because when the business was eventually sold, you were part of the sale.
Yes. And that was...
So you had to have some worth.
Yes, that was something I chose to be, but they thought, the people who bought the company at the time, okay, they didn't think I would last, let's say. Okay, she will stay for a month or two. And they were extra suspicious. They thought I was maybe staying there in order to, I don't know, find out their secrets or something, which was not at all the case, of course. I decided to stay on because I thought, and it was eventually, an immense lesson for me to work for a multinational company. It was totally a different approach, an extremely professional approach. Plus, the company had a big brand of products, except the brandy. They had vodkas, they had whiskeys, they had liquors, which was very challenging. Everything, all the marketing was restructured from the beginning. So there were a lot of briefing and advertising agencies. I loved all that. I learned so much in marketing, which was like having a master's degree in marketing, so much. They worked very hard, all hours, not like, obviously, we were working not so many hours as a family and on a different level. But I think after the first, let's say, 6-7 months, near a year, they realized that I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not the enemy.
Did you find it difficult when the company was purchased to kind of climb out from the family name? Because, I mean, you still were a Metaxa.
Yes, I found it difficult. I think it was more, I understood that completely, the reasons the company was sold at the time, the timing, everything. I think it was more disappointing for my brothers, Andreas and Angelos, as they were much younger than me. They didn't have the opportunity to start working in the company or not, but they were teenagers at the time. almost finishing school, my brother Andreas, and they always thought, of course, being brought up in this male-orientated company, that they were the successors. They would be one day the continuous. I mean, since the day they were born, this was what they were. Everybody was telling them in the family. So I think for the boys, it was more disappointing. For me, as I was a bit older, I realized the way my uncle and my father explained it to me, the business aspect of the timing. I realized it's a good timing. Of course, it hurt also emotionally. And I thought it was an opportunity for me, again, to prove myself and to work hard. And which it did actually work out like that. It did turn out like that in the end. After the years I spent there, it was appreciated. And by that time, and because the people with whom I worked were, I think only one was Greek, all the others were foreigners, they didn't have this conception about women, at least like we had it in Greece. So it was more normal to go and to grow in this environment business-wise. And in the end, they totally accepted me.
Yeah, because tell everybody just a little bit about what you did.
Okay, I was a brand manager. I was working in marketing for a series of products. I had gin, I had a whiskey. I didn't have the Metaxa brandy. I had liquors, a vodka, and another 2 different liquors, 6 or 7 brands. So I was like a brand manager for these 6 or 7 brands. So I was responsible of making the advertising campaigns, briefing the advertising agencies, making the prices, talking to the sales people, making sure the products were in the markets, and not only the supermarkets, but also we had to, to rate the bars and see that they were in the night, the night bars also, in the nightlife, which is very intense in Greece, has only been cut down a little bit due to the COVID, but always had a very intense lifestyle.
And these were not, it's, I think, worth noting that these were not small brands that you were working with.
They were very well-known brands. They had this they were well-known also all over the world. They were not small. I think only there was one of the liquors which was just starting. It was in a category called schnapps, like a digestive, and they had just started at the time appearing with something new. But other than that, yes, they were very, very well known. And there was a lot of work in order to do the prices, the placement, the advertising, the marketing, the going around, making sure it was everywhere. The below and above the line, as they called it, it was the promotions, either the promotions in the bars or in the supermarkets, or the classical ones, which were in the magazines at the time, on TV, billboards, that kind. So we had both advertisements in the classic way we knew it, and doing lots of promotions and PR. It was a very, very busy time.
Not bad for a woman.
Not bad for a woman, for a Greek woman.
In your book, you say, like how brandy matures over time in a barrel, I feel like I've been maturing in a barrel for my entire life. If I were to be a 5-star brandy, and if I were to recommend how you can become one too, here are 5 major attributes to develop in yourself. I'd like to go through these 5 and just get your thoughts on them.
Of course.
The first one is to be original. What's your thought on that?
Yes, to be original, because obviously to speak your mind, like I can't stop speaking mine, and to be who you are for yourself, not to be someone in order for the others to like you. I have also written about the likes and the likes we put on the social media. Everybody's trying so hard nowadays to make an image, to create an image that I am, even if it's not what they really are. If we could just take out the image, more, you're a photographer, and be what we really are within, like you do it with you bring the inside out because you see through the eyes. Something like that I meant, to be original and to have values, of course.
Second one is be brave.
Be brave. Oh my God, be brave. I cannot be brave enough. Be brave, because we always have second thoughts, and the second thoughts always keep us back. And the same happens, either it's in our personal lives or either it's in our business lives. We always screen everything. We overthink. We tend to overthink. I also do the same. I'm not different. Should I do this? Should I do that? How would this be? We make a whole, let's say, quote unquote, business plan in our minds before we go ahead with something which we deeply inside us, we know what we want. So be brave. I mean, be brave and do what you really want without overthinking. But of course, think a little bit, because you can't, just run off the cliff if that's what you want. But be brave and think that you can make it, and then you will make it.
Third one is be innovative and proactive.
I'll start with the proactive, because this is something I found out in my, let's say, business career, that it's always better to be proactive in life and in business mainly. Or as I would say simply, better safe than sorry, which is one of the sayings I really like. So be proactive with whatever experience each one has, because obviously the older you become, the more experience you have. For example, my father has so much experience, he doesn't need to be proactive. He becomes automatically proactive. I am getting there. So that's what I meant, being proactive. And original is like not to try to imitate everybody else, to be your own true colors. It sounds a bit cliche, but to be what you feel.
Fourth one is find the fruit. What does that mean?
Find the fruit. By the fruit, I mean the lessons, so to speak, from within the family, because we always keep up. That started as a thought I had, that we always try to seek advice for relationships in our families. Namely, this is on a personal level, not on the business level. We try to find advice from others. To read books, to maybe go into therapy or talk or search, and maybe the lessons or the fruits, as I call them, are within our family. Maybe our family, our parents, our siblings can, quote unquote, coach us. But the thing is, we tend not to want to listen to our family. I was the first one who did that, We tend to reject what they say and to think it's totally wrong. And because we think as teenagers and then a bit older also, we still think that our families want something different for us, namely our parents. But in the end, they want the same thing, because they mostly, most of them at least, love us, and they want our good. So not try to search the roots on other trees, search them in the family tree.
Love that. And the last one is declutter your mind.
Ah, yes, because we always clatter. We have so many thoughts. This is something I read somewhere, and I'm quoting it, that our brain, sometimes it's so busy, it's like it has many monkeys jumping from one tree to the other, from one tree to the other. And all these monkeys are our thoughts. We know we are doing something and we are thinking something else all the time. And nowadays, everybody's doing it because of the internet, the social media, all the applications, so many thoughts. And in the end, first of all, we exhaust ourselves, and basically we lose our orientation, our focus to what is important to do. Because, for example, we start one thing, I have to do this, we go to the other thing, we do this, we do that, and our mind is clatter. That's what I mean, I'm cluttered.
And you have so many wonderful stories and whatnot in your book, and we'll tell people in a little bit how to get it. But at the end of the day, when people hear the name Metaxa, what do you hope that they think and feel?
I hope that they continue to think and feel what my ancestors built so long ago, me being the fourth generation. A very nice product, liqueur, a brandy, which represents Greek, because it's of Greek origin. It has been and still is made and produced in Greece. And it is its own category. Let's say it's not, and that's why we could not call it cognac, because cognac are the liquor, the spirits that are made in cognac in France. Way back, they used to call it a cognac here in Greece. So it's something different. And I would really like people to remember how it started and how it still is a beautiful product, clear, nice, tasteful, and representing Greece. It's synonymous of Greece.
Which sounds like something with you and your family. Nice, tasteful, representing Greece.
Yes, I hope. Yes, I hope we continue the next generations to still do that.
And with that, Zika, I just have 4 final questions for you. The first one is, we're talking about fruits earlier. What's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Yes, I think it was from my mentor in business, Dennis, who always told me and taught me how to prioritize, basically in the business, but then in life. And I'm mentioning him because he passed away a few months ago, very young. He would always prioritize. He had a big office, a desk, which was always, it could have been full of papers. And the only thing he had was a small Post-it with the 3 priorities. He said, of the day, if your priorities cannot fit into this tiny little Post-it paper, then you're not a good manager. You cannot delegate. If you start picking up one paper, taking the other, going into folders, you miss all your focus. Prioritize. And whenever I do that, I find out I'm much more efficient in whatever I do, either whether it's business or sometimes it's on a personal basis. They will throw many things at you and you have to think simultaneously. Sometimes you have to take a decision at the same moment for 2 different things. You have to think, what is more important now, this or that? So for me, prioritizing is the main lesson I was taught, and I still live by.
I might have to try that. Share with us one thing on your bucket list.
My bucket list. Okay, my bucket list is to overcome my my fear of heights. I have an increasingly very big fear of heights. And my son keeps challenging me, but I never accept the challenges. So maybe one day I will. You'll see me skydiving.
Oh, yeah. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when the toy companies finally get around to making an action figure of you, what 2 accessories will it come with?
Okay. I always carry around with me a book, something I'm reading, a pen or 2, 1 or 2 pens, and nowadays either a pad or a laptop, whatever, depending if I'm traveling or not. So that would be it. Something to scribble on, whether it's a paper or it's something electronic, and a couple of pens and a book.
How do people find you and also find your book?
Okay, my book, Metaxa Stars, is on Amazon. Amazon US, Amazon.com, Amazon Deutsch, French. And I'm on the social media on the Metaxa Stars on Facebook as Metaxa Stars, and on Instagram as Metaxa Stars also.
Love it. Thank you so very much for being here. And
Thank
you know what? I almost went out and bought some Metaxa because it's one of the things that I have never tried, but I'm going to have to go out and do that.
I can't send one from Greece because you're so far away. Otherwise, I would send you a few bottles.
Oh, I'll have to work on that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
It was lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
You too.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Please comment, like, or share this episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more information on how I can help you create your iconic image, visit marlanasemenza.com.